So what are the chapter 7 is about delivery, and delivery is basically 1/3 of your grading on your speeches. All right, so includes like eye contact and facial expressions and your voice and uh, what you're wearing, your movement, things of that nature. All right, so what are the characteristics of a good speaker? One study said that 93% of communication is actually nonverbal. So actions speak louder than words. Remember that good speakers are multi-channeled. Just gonna make sure I'm definitely recording. So yeah, so it's not what you say, it's how you say it, your delivery, right? Which is why you want to be on camera, hands are visible, gesturing, you have a really good animated dynamic delivery with a good voice, you smile a lot. That's the best facial expression you can do when you're doing public speaking. And you've got kind of blend all that in together into your expressive public speaking style. And remember that we want to use all the different channels. Those are the 5 senses. So we want to move around a lot. So it's something to look at. We want to give visual aids. So there's something to look at. We want to have something that's not boring to listen to. So you're not monotone, right? So you use pitch and tone and volume and rate and accents and voices. And then also, if you're speaking live, taste, touch, smell, right? So it's bringing food, something to smell, something to eat, and also something to touch, which is food as well, right? And then if you're doing it virtually online, think about how we can do virtual fist bumps, kind of like do some touch that way, and then we can all get a cup of coffee. I'm actually gonna go grab mine since there's nobody here real quick. I'll do that. All right, so that was kind of a big pause, but anyhow, so back to let's toast coffee. Good morning, and then we can smells good. That's one of the best things about coffee, the smell in the morning, and then also we can taste it. And I'm using a Keurig, using Pete's coffee pods. I think it was a dark horse. So, all right. By the way, coffee might be a terrific speech topic for an informative speech, right? So, okay. Nonverbal communication. So this isn't in your textbook. So when you get the quiz and the final exam questions on this section, you need to watch the video lecture. So here we go. Proxemics. That's understanding. It's non-verbally communicating with how you use the space around you, right? Like how close you sit to people or far away, whether you're touching or not. Now relate to haptics. The way you drive, right? The way you sit in a public space or a movie theater. You notice that in movie theater Americans like to leave gaps between groups of people, right? And if the movie theater is empty and you sit right next to somebody, they're going to look at you kind of funny, right? Because you're kind of invading their space. And so, because Americans like to have space, right? So, and different cultures are very, very different about that in terms of proxemics. So the proxemics is understanding like proximity, what's around you, and how you use the space around you to communicate to people, to about yourself and to them. Kinesics is body motion. So speakers should again use their face, their hands, their neck and shoulders. And if you're speaking, you walk around, ideally during the 4 transitions in the outline. So watch your story time and introduction speech videos. And if you don't move around a lot on the camera, think about you need to fix that and get in motion, right? Not a super repetitive motion, but I would say all movement should be purposeful when you're doing public speaking. All right, haptics, we learned chapter 1. So let's go back to chapter 1. Is the study of physical touch, and that it's good for you, makes you healthier, that we need it as human beings. And it's a great skill, how you touch people when you communicate with them. If you want to get elected, they always say you got to kiss babies and shake a lot of hands, right? So what does that quote really mean? Well, you have to touch people to get them to vote for you. You need to be real, right? Not just a poster or a TV commercial And so touching makes you real. So that's a good way. Be touchy. We talked about that. Be touchy in your personal relationships and inappropriate, but you'll see that it's a powerful thing. Okay. And then haptics also studies the physical touch in terms of like who's touchy, who's not, what cultures are touchy, what cultures are not, what touch is involved. Think about the greeting. In American culture, we shake hands, but we maintain arm's distance. Some cultures kiss and hug, and other cultures maintain distance and bow, and there's no touching at all. So haptics also relates to your phones, because we all have touch screens nowadays, right? And so think about how we can kind of think about that in terms of technology. And also, like, look at the phrase keep in touch, right? And what that means. So kind of understand haptics. And fourth, artifacts. So artifacts are actually items that are physical, tangible items that we carry, wear, or possess. And these things say something about who we are, right? So women usually have purses, and maybe they might have like a vanity makeup kit in their purse. Guys, we might have our phones, or actually everybody has their phones nowadays, right? And what does it say about us that we all have phones, or our society? There's also, could be jewelry, tattoo, what else? Things you wear, right? Pretty much all the time. You always have them with you, right? On my keychain, I have one that I was going to give to my daughter that I got as a gift from another woman, and it's got a little mace or pepper spray on it, right? So think about what it says about you if you carry a keychain that has some pepper spray as a lady, right? Or some like mace. I think for you're prepared for personal safety. I think that's what it says. Really, I think it's good actually. It's a good thing, I think, to have on you as a woman. So if you died today, think about like what things you might be carrying on you or possessing that said, and then what did it say about you? Like if I looked up, I died, and you looked in my wallet and I had a picture of my children, right? And think about what that says about me. Then I also have, let's say I'm wearing a watch, right? Because everybody nowadays use their phone and other devices to tell the time. So watches no longer they're kind of obsolete, right? But so what does it mean when I wear a watch? Well, it kind of communicates that I'm punctual. I'm kind of monochronymic, which actually ties into chronemics, so we'll talk about that just in a second. So chronemics is the use of time and how we communicate that. I'm late. I don't respond. I respond immediately to you. I forget completely about something and don't show up, right? And so chronemics is how we use time and how people understand and interpret what it says about you. There's a quote about work: 30 minutes early is early, 15 minutes early is on time, and on time is late, right? So you want to communicate to people that you're prepared and ready to go by always being early, right? The early bird gets the worm is a famous quote. Then there's also two types of cultures that you look at how they spend time or people as a result of the cultural influences. There's monochronemic and polychronemic people. So mono means one, poly means many. So monochronemic people, turned off my heater, it's getting hot in here. Monochronemic people think that their time only has one version, which is important and don't waste it, and you want to be punctual and on time, right? Polychronemic people and cultures say there are multiple versions of time. It goes slow sometimes, it goes fast other times. It kind of is different depending on who you're with and what you're doing, right? And you can show up fashionably late to a lot of things. So I know some friends, and I don't want to, culturally stereotype, but I've heard, my Mexican friends would be like, dude, I'm on Mexican time, right? Or I've heard other people say, like, I'm on Filipino time. It just means that, yeah, you think about other cultures. Americans, by the way, are monochromic, right? So when you see people from other cultural backgrounds, a lot of times they're more polychromic. Some of that actually results from where you live geographically. They kind of found that cold climates tend to be monochromic, and that people who live near the equator, where there's no seasons at all, it's just always tropical, they're more polychronemic, right? So paralanguage. So this is nonverbal communication. This one's interesting because it involves audio, not just what you see, taste, touch, smell. So paralanguage are sounds that are not words, but the sounds are given a meaning, right? So I might do this example of paralanguage. And you notice I do the hand gesture with the sound. And people interpret that because you have to see the gesture, right? And then you hear the sound. But people in American culture know that sound means be quiet, right? So that's an example of paralanguage. It's a sound, that's not a word, but the sound has a meaning. Or I might do this one. That is the sound for, pay attention or turn around or get aware, right? I'm just kind of like grunting with my voice, kind of. And Americans kind of know that means, you just did something and you should pay attention to it or something like that, right? And another paralanguage example might be this one. I might gasp. Right, that's kind of this noise where you breathe in quickly. What does it mean? Shock, surprise, a lot of the times. I'm gonna drink some coffee real quick. And then the tricky version of paralanguage is this one. So I might say, God damn it, right? And where's the paralanguage in that? Because I actually said a word, right? Because paralanguage is actually sounds that are not words that have a meaning. So where is the paralanguage when I yell, God damn it? It's the fact that I'm yelling. I raise my voice, right? So the words, God damn it, might mean I'm angry, but the volume of the way I say it, right? Not what you say, how you say it, shows you that I'm angry. So that's the paralanguage. It's the volume with which you speak. That when you yell, people understand that it means you're angry and upset, right? So, okay. And then a lot of cultures have different versions of paralanguage as well, right? And like what certain sounds or things might mean. Not just in American culture too, right? Like, I've heard people kind of go, it's like, oh, okay, I understand that means disapproval or they don't like it, right? So, okay. And then silence. Silence is awkward. Silence is deafening. Silence speaks volumes, right? So sometimes people respond with nothing, and that is a form of nonverbal communication. What does it mean? I don't want to say anything about this, or no, or I interpret it like if I ask somebody, will you go out with me on Valentine's Day? And you got met with silence, right? I interpret that as I decode that as very negative, meaning no, right? So make sure you understand the different types of nonverbal communication: proxemics, kinesics, haptics, artifacts, phonemics, paralanguage, and even silence, right? So space and territoriality, human motion, touch, physical items that people wear, possess, or carry that say something about who they are, chronemics, how we communicate with time, the sounds in our culture that are given meanings that are not words though, and silence. So 7.1, let's dive into chapter 7 in the textbook, which is the characteristics of a good delivery. So the first is that you have an enlarged conversational quality. So public speakers, it's like that you're having a conversation with them, even though you're not, because largely it's the speaker speaks and the audience listens, right? So, but think about the way you speak. In a conversation, you can reach out and touch somebody. You have an audience, it's a bigger room, but that doesn't mean you can't still, walk around and, high five some people or two. I think I see a lot of athletes when they mix with crowds now, right? There's just a lot of fist bumping and high five as they run around. And that's just, you see the power of touch, by the way, right? Because I guarantee you, all the people who actually like high five with an athlete, they will talk about that and remember that for the rest of their lives, because you didn't just see that person, you actually touch them. So desire to communicate. People have to be motivated to want to speak. You got to have this desire, the motivation. I can lead a camel to water, but I can't make the camel drink, right? So it's up to the camel. You as a student, you'll be led right by the instructor, right guide, right up to the water, but it's up to you in the end to drink the water, right? And I hope that you drink it, just like slurp it up forever. And what you're motivated in life to do is interesting, right? I think most of us, we want to find a purpose. I think that you got to think about that. What's your purpose constantly, right? Get grades, finish school, be a good person, follow the law, help your parents. It could also be, I can think of all sorts of different purposes. For me, it's raising my children, right? That's one of the primary purpose. So, and I know a lot of parents, that's not their primary purpose. There are other things that are more motivated to do in life than actually raise their family. But that, what, raising your family is hard. Being a parent, I find it to be the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, by far, compared to anything else. Much harder than making money, starting your career, finishing college, finding a mate is much harder. Dating is number 2, by the way. Parenting number 1, dating number 2. That's my personal opinion. So, and then third, be natural in the way you speak, right? Your delivery. kind of as you speak and you practice and you go through the process of this journey, becoming a good public speaker, you'll kind of naturally realize what comes to you, what doesn't, and you can work on those things that now aren't natural and really accentuate and use as strength, right? As a strength, what naturally comes to you. Maybe it could be a sense of humor that emerges. You become a very dynamic speaker in terms of gesturing. Maybe you also really increase your movement. Maybe you learn how to really be more touchy, but in an appropriate manner, right? To be like supportive touchy. So one thing I noticed about gay guys is they're a good version, I think, of what a touchy person should be like, honestly, right? Because they're not worried about this homophobic thing if they touch other people. So and you know, it might be even to the extreme, but I think that's a good example of kind of like freeing yourself and just saying, this is how I'm going to express myself. And then this is it's a good thing. It's a very good thing too, by the way. 7.2, the elements of a good delivery. So let's talk about body. Your entire body matters, right? You're on camera here. It's only about half me, but your attire, how you're dressed, right? Dress for success, dress to impress. Dress for success, dress to impress, right? Attire does matter. People look at you and make a lot of assumptions based on how you're dressed, right? And it communicates whether you want to or not, or intend to or not. Grooming, haircuts, facial hair, conservative, clean cut. When I went to law school, I remember thinking I'm going to be like conservatively groomed for the rest of my life for this career, right? And I kind of understood that. That's people make assumptions about you based on the image of how you're groomed, right? So posture, formal, rigid, no slouching, right? Formal, rigid at all times. It actually says a lot about people in when you just look at their posture. Is it confident? Is it hiding? Maybe shy? Is it inappropriate? Right? You see that actually with little boys. They'll do some inappropriate postures until they're kind of socialized. So you're not, you know, you can't do that in public. I actually saw some first grade boys that are basically scratching themselves and then growing up. And like right, and everyone is like, stop doing that. You know, it's inappropriate, right? So it's a good example. Demeanor. Posture should be calm, cool, and collected. So demeanor is kind of how you carry yourself, kind of your attitude, outlook on life, and people can see that through your nonverbal body. And then also smiling, I think is really important for part of one of that too. And then body movement, right? Just gets kinesics again. We relate back that to nonverbal form of communication. Just motion with your hands, your face, your head, your shoulders, your neck. You move around if you're in a live speaking environment. You don't just stand still or stand at the podium. And then number two, we got to do gestures. So like we want us good public speakers to have an arsenal of gestures, right? We can just take our hands and we can do, you know, like I've just practiced doing every possible gesture that you might need to do. Wait, where's the heart? Right. The quotes, you know how to dab, touchdown or surrender. I surrender, don't shoot me. So gestures. So good public speakers can do all of them. 1, 2, 3. By the way, if you're an American, you go 1, 2, 3. A lot of non-Americans go 1, 2, 3. And so if you ever see people count, you can kind of tell a little bit about where they're from. And then eye contact. In American culture, Western culture, we generally make eye contact. That's looking at the camera then. So look at your video speeches and see if you're looking at the camera or not, or you're reading something, or you're kind of like eyes are all over the place or kind of down. Look at the camera, right? For mine, it has lights, so I look at the lights and I basically treat the camera as a person, right? And I'm looking right in the eye. So facial expressions. So let's do the exercise here. I have a visual aid of the 8 basic facial expressions. So all of us following along the video lecture Net Live, let's do our first one, angry face. Just, make yourself look angry, mad. All right, contempt. This is, you basically dislike something, but you're not going to be openly angry or hostile. So you're just like, disgust. And then there's fear. False emotions appearing real. Remember, I don't believe in fear. I think you should be cautious. You should be wise. You should look before you leap, but you should never be afraid. I think fear prevents you from becoming who you should become. It's an evolutionary instinct because for a lot of human history, life was hard and difficult and scary and dangerous and violent. Thomas Hobbes said life, life is violent, brutish, and something else. I forgot what the other phrase. I can remember that quote. It's been a while since I used that quote, but it's a good one, right? So, if you don't know, Thomas Hobbes is an English philosopher and also famous because of the cartoon Calvin and Hobbes, right? It's on Thomas Hobbes, and then John Calvin was Calvin's name. So anyhow, another English religious philosopher. So fear. I don't believe in it. I conquered my fear, but I thought about this, and I'm like, I'm 50, and I've had a long life, and I've gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of crazy situations where you have to confront fear and deal with it, right? And so it's like, the one that's really hard though is when you worry about your children. That's a fear that you can't really control very well. So I can't conquer that, if that makes sense, right? You try not to worry or just not you ignore it, but like if you don't hear from your kids for a while, you're still getting little paranoid thoughts and stuff, right? So all right, happy. And then sadness. I lost my puppy. I lost my sunshine. I got my sunshine, right? Surprise, kind of mouth wide open, eyebrows, eyes wide open, and then neutral, your poker face. All right. So those are the facial expressions. So good speakers have a lot of hand gestures and they have a lot of facial expressions, right? They do the basic A1s, no problem. Breathing in with your nose, out with your mouth. In with your nose, out with your mouth. No. Sorry, my dog is licking my other dog's. He got surgery and there's a wound and it's not, but they have the cones on. Oh, I can't allow that. Sorry. Vocal characteristics. Rate. So speak slower, speak a little bit quicker, speak a little bit slower, speak slower, quicker, and vary the rate. Also change the volume. So you can speak louder. You always want to be at least, audible, but then you whispered a little bit to some effect, right? And then there's also the pitch. So let's do our high pitched tone of voice. That's hot, right? And then we do our low tone of voice. Hubba bubba, baby, right? So like you want to, follow after me. Let's do high pitched tone of voice. That's hot. And then we can do our low tone of voice. Hubba bubba, baby, right? And we use our voices. And then a voice has got to be really, really good. Research says when you're doing online speaking like we are right now. So express yourself. One of my friends was saying, when you talk to children, you're good. You easily use your voice. It comes out, right? So think about don't just because we're grown-ups doesn't mean you can't have that inner child in you kind of come out and use the different voices. It could be a British accent too, like Charlie, you bit my finger, or piss off, you bloody wanker, or it could be something like what, and then you've got your different movie characters or TV show characters that are kind of famous. So dude's doing it again. The cone doesn't work. I gotta figure out a solution to this. Okay, so you're not in trouble, Dougie, but I'm sorry, you can't do that. All right. So whatever accents you can equivalent throw in a speech anytime is always good and entertaining. I might try and do my Arnold, get to the chopper. Whenever I get an opportunity, I throw that out there. So 7.3 is speech practice. So practice makes perfect. It's our class motto. And so let's practice our speeches, including our impromptu speech before we do it live next Thursday or Tuesday, but nobody signed up. So if you don't sign up and there could be some consequences, right? So I would encourage everybody in the class, you're required to sign up. So you're not doing your required work in this class if you're not signing up for speeches. All right. But first thing you got to do is always complete your outline before you practice, right? And I showed you and I will show you later the impromptu speech outline was the Google Docs link in the impromptu speech discussion, also where you sign up. I know there's 2 possible days, right? Just 2 or 3 spots open on Tuesday, but the rest on Thursday. So choose a private place to practice. Just because we have anxiety, there's no reason you need to do that in public. So yeah. Third, practice in a standing position, no sitting. I always say practice make it as real as possible. So I might actually dress up, right, when I practice. Just makes it feel more authentic. And there's no, practice makes perfect. There's just a lot of good things about it. So fourth, let's get loose before speaking. Sorry, I'm holding on to my dog. So let's stretch, because we're going to gesture a lot, do a lot of facial expressions. We're going to move around, use our arms, shoulders, hips, knees, everything. So, and I love the time, 4 transitions in outline, move your feet in a real live speaking environment 4 different times during those transitions. It's very, very clever, right? So yeah, by the way, research says stretching is good for you. So stretch all the time. Practice in small increments and gradually build up. So here we're going to do the introduction. We got that down. Then we add the first main point. Get that down. We add the second main point, add the third main point, get to the conclusion. Sit. Douglas, sit. You're in trouble. You have to stay here, buddy. Can't lick your brother's wound. So, and then add the conclusion. So that's the strategy to practice in small increments and then build up. And then you're also really, really, really going to do well because the most time you're nervous is at the beginning. So if you practiced your introduction that much, because every time you practice your speech, you started with the intro and then you gradually added increments and then finish the whole thing, right? You'll see that the introduction will go smoothly. And that's great because it's usually when you start smooth, you finish smooth. So really, really like the strategy. Practice your speech and just, do it in small increments and gradually build up. Time your speeches though. Every time you practice, make sure the speech fits your parameters. Just, is it long enough? Is it too short? Is it too long? Make sure you're generally within the guidelines as best you can, right? So practice entire speech 5 times. That allows it to sort of evolve. We saw earlier how it'll kind of be the first version, then you'll change it a bunch. You have a second version, practice that once. Now you have more of a final version, and then practice the final version twice, so you're up to 5. And you might add things from the slides, change them, just double check everything. Is the font big enough? It's uncluttered. I have enough visual aids. I have my citations down, and I know how to do the evidence 3-step. I verbally cite on my sources. When I practice my speeches, I record them every time and then I listen and watch them, see what I can do better and learn from it. Right. And then finally, evaluate your own speech. You're going to be the one person who's going to watch every speech you give for the rest of your life. So learn again how to look at content, organization, delivery. No, Dougie, come here. Come. You have to stay here. And this is also the grading rubric for your speeches as well in this class. So at the end of this lecture, I will think about the content, the examples, the details. Hey, sorry, I'm going to close the door. You can't go there. And then I will then look at the organization. Did I, preview everything, go through the agenda, cover everything I needed, and then wrap it up at the end. And then finally, delivery. Was it dynamic? I used my good voice. I had my hand gestures. I had motion, facial expressions. And then I think about what I could do, what I did well, what I could do better. All right, so 7.5, your delivery between speeches. So your body language before or after speeches actually matters a lot. People, even though you're not speaking, people are watching you, right? Again, channel is the most common side of communication. And you want to look prepared, confident, don't be doing last minute work. And remember that you cannot not communicate. So be well dressed, right? Dress to impress, dress for success. And understand you just want to have a good, confident demeanor and posture, right? Because before and after the speeches, because people are, all of that's included when they're kind of, watching you do something on stage, not just the time that you're speaking, although that's the most important, right? So 7.6, how to deal with smartphone distractions when speaking. So the new type of external noise, remember in chapter 1, we have the model communication. Noise is background stress and communication at all parts of the model. And there's internal noise and external noise. Internal noise is from inside your body. External noise comes from outside your body, right? And it means phones are ubiquitous. I mean, ubiquitous means they're everywhere. So ask for silence, please, just like the movies do. As a public speaker, ask people to turn off their phones. Walk closer to your audience, especially when you're obviously in a live speaking environment, so you can approach them and kind of people scrutinize people, and then people are less likely to be distracted by their phone if they feel like you're right close to them, right? Like, again, that's proxemics. And then we also want to use our smartphones to our advantage. So I might use Kahoot and ask people to break out their phone, do a quick survey, gather some research from my audience and see what the results are, and then incorporate that into my presentation. Finally, earn your audience's attention. Right? Smartphone is not going to be a problem at all if you're engaging speaker. Your content's great, your delivery is fantastic and dynamic and fun, and that you're well organized. The audience easily follows your speech and remembers everything you say. Use of social media. So advertise your speech before you're speaking. Let everyone know, just like, a band is playing, come and check it out. Welcome your audience using social media as well, and interact with them, because people will leave comments. People, hit like or whatever it might be. Watch your reel on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. By the way, I was reading, get off TikTok. It's owned by the Chinese government, and they might make it illegal soon, but they're saying that basically, I was reading security experts, and they're saying they could get a lot of stuff from your phone, the Chinese government. And I just don't think you'd want that to happen. So I don't use TikTok, so maybe I'm biased, but yeah. Donald Trump thought about banning it, right? So, but they didn't. But after the balloon thing, shoot down incident a couple of weeks ago, tensions are high, especially with Taiwan as well. And Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, went there last fall, and the new House Speaker is going to visit Taiwan as well. That's going to totally piss off the Chinese even more. So things are definitely ratcheting up. Plus, with Russia and Ukraine going on, it's kind of like this is a good time for China to do something if they're ever going to do it militarily, right? Because we're kind of distracted, and Europe's not going to come to the Taiwan's aid because of the Ukraine stuff, and so it's basically would just be us in Australia and Japan, and anyhow, tensions are high. All right. Also, you can share materials like your slideshow with all the HTML links built into it with using social media, right? So everyone can just like I share all my slideshows on the various threads in the discussions here in class, and learning from your speech. They'll leave you comments. Remember, there are a lot of trolls and haters on the internet, but just any constructive criticism, I think absolutely, right? So, and then finally, thank your audience. Not at the end of your speech when you're speaking, but on social media. Your last word should be powerful, strong closing statement for your speeches. 7.9. Now, you video recorded your practice speeches or your real speeches, even your live speeches will be recorded so you can watch them later. So take the opportunity to view your speech. Watch yourself speak, self-evaluate. We talked about organization, content delivery. You'll kind of use the grading sheet coming up for your critique letters twice. And I think you'll become much more familiar with it. It's something that you can kind of like just say, like, yeah, I could kind of generally remember all the criteria and kind of apply it to every speaking situation I come up with. So I'm brutal. When I go to church and I watch like the different pastors speak and stuff, I'm very public speaking critical. Sometimes they're really, really good though. Others are like, I'm like, wow, you could use a lot of help. But practice makes perfect. I've seen that most pastors who've done it for a long time, they all have their own style, and generally it works, right? Because it's just, you do enough speaking, you're gonna get really, really good at it. So, okay. View it alone, self-reflect and evaluate. You need other people to tell you what you're doing wrong. You can watch it yourself and really self-evaluate and evaluate. Again, content, organization, delivery. And view the speech without sound. And again, without sound, that really puts an emphasis on your nonverbals, right? I'll give you a good kind of litmus test. You're watching your speech, you turn the audio off, and you get so bored watching the screen, right? Because there's nothing going on, but your kind of lips are moving sometimes, right? And you realize, yeah, that's lack of motion. I understand why delivery matters a lot now, right? Because you turn off the sound, there's only nonverbal to focus on, right? But just remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And then look for positives. We want to build. So there you go. So on to chapter 8, informative speaking and the start of extemporaneous speeches. That's a video lecture. I talked about that at the beginning of the meeting. Those links have been put into 2 places in Canvas discussions for you to consume. And we're going to go to chapter 10 and talk about impromptu speaking. An assignment that you should sign up for, and we're going to do next week. And then next week we got informative speeches, and then next week we have persuasive speeches, and then the quarter is over. Take the final exam. So impromptu speaking 10.2. First, it's always outlines first, right? Just like when you're practicing, like blueprints before building a home. I have the Google sample docs outline that I'll show you after I get through this section here, and I'll fill in the blanks and kind of do like a sample impromptu speech. And we want to keep this speech simple, short, and on point, right? So don't just start blabbering. Make sure it's organized and simple, short, and on point, right? And that's why a good outline is going to matter a lot. You have 5 minutes to prepare during your impromptu speech before you do your speech. You get your topic, 5 minutes to prepare. So make sure you make a good outline, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do that right after this. So third, just keep it organized. So if we can follow the outline, I'm going to actually print the template up or open up my own Google Docs template of it And then when I get my topic in my 5 minutes, I'm going to fill in the blanks and type out my outline. And then I'll use that outline as I speak. And I don't need a shared screen, right? I should, impromptu speech should be camera only. There's no reason that we need to necessarily see your outline. Some people do a quick slideshow sometimes too. That's possible. You can, open a Google Slides and build a quick, make a Google Slides template for your impromptu speech outline. So, and then fill in the blanks. All right. So make it colorful. So during your impromptu speech, when you get to your main points, include details, examples, stories. I'll have 3 main points, and I'll make sure each main point has an example, a story, and a bunch of details, right? And then keep it conversational and natural. We talked about that earlier in terms of delivery and how that matters. And keep it cool. You're an experienced impromptu speaker. We do impromptu speaking every day, all the time. It's actually the predominant form of communication. 99.9% of communication is impromptu. It's spontaneous. We just make it up as it happens in life as the world turns. So yeah, so you're actually quite good at it. You've just never done in this format, which is I encourage you to practice over the weekend. And I'll show you how to do that. Show you the outline, where your topics are, and keep the speech in perspective. It's spontaneous, right? You don't have any time to prepare. It's very different from your informative and persuasive speeches. So if you don't do as well as you want, don't worry about it, right? It's keep it in perspective. This is part of the learning process. Extemporaneous speeches coming up next are worth much more points. Much more important in terms of your grade. So, think about how this is a building block to the next 2 speeches. Then the final exam. So sample topics, page 204. So in your book, if you go to page 204, you can find sample topics for your speech. Impromptu speeches where you can practice from, right? So I would do 3 or 4 or 5 over the weekend. I guarantee you'll be ready to go by Thursday if you do this, if you practice your impromptu speaking 4 or 5 different times. Also, it'll make you a much, much better speaker. It's one of the quickest, easiest ways to practice public speaking and get better at it, because you have quick topics and they're different all the time, right? And spontaneous, which is, again, kind of naturally what we always do. So once you kind of practice it, you'll see that it's very simple, very easy. And then after the assignment, I encourage you to practice the impromptu speech you did in class, right? And just do it again later on. You made an outline. I encourage you to practice every speech you did in this class. So once you're finished, you get a grade. Practice your introduction speech again, your story time speech again, and impromptu speaking again, your informative speech and your persuasive speech. You have an outline, you have a slideshow, you've already done it, and you'll see that you're just going to get better and better and better. When you see those results, that's what builds confidence and self-esteem. So sample topics on page 204. And the first example, I'm going to give you 3 topics. You choose 5, you get 5 minutes. Once I give you your topics, choose 1 of the 3, and then make your outline and do the speech. In the 10.3 word impromptu word list here in the textbook, it gives you pairs of topics. I'm going to give you 3 choices instead. But anyhow, so number 1 here is summer or friend. So I'm going to do an impromptu speech on summer or friend, and I'm going to choose friends, right? So let's go to my outline. This is, again, the Google Docs link right here in the impromptu speech discussion. You can also download this one, the file. And then I have the sample impromptu speeches from students here. Here we go. Here's the impromptu speech outline. So I'm going to make my own template so I can just fill in the blanks. I get the topic. It's friends, right? I like that one over summer, I guess. So I know my full name, Peter Lee. And remember, I don't have to do these in this order. Just you can do the intention getter first, whatever you want. Just make sure you do all 4 things. The thesis statement. So the purposes are to inform, persuade, or entertain. Those are the 3 purposes of public speaking. And then my topic will be friends. So I can inform people of friendship, friends. I can persuade people to have friends, make friends, don't make friends. Avoid everybody that you can't trust them. Or third, I can entertain people about friends. That's challenging. So I'm going to choose the easy one. I'm going to just inform people about friends. Ouch. You know what? I'm going to persuade people to make friends. Actually, I like that topic better for me. So, all right. So 3 main points, and I'm going to preview them. So I'm going to think about what they are. 1, 2, 3. The first is I'm going to talk about why making friends is really, really important throughout all stages of your life. Point number 2 would be, and I'll type this in, right? And then number 2, I would talk about how to make friends. Because I want to, if you want, I'm not just going to tell you that friends are important. I want to try to give you some really good tips about how to make some friends, how to approach people, how to build relationships, how to avoid shady people. And then number 3, I would talk about the different types of friends out there. Okay. Or I might maybe make types of friends number 2 and number 3, how to make friends, right? So I'm always interchanging around the main points to see if something just makes more coherent sense. Then intention getter. So I got to ask a question, how many of us have a lot of friends? How many of us have a best friend? I can tell, I can make, there's a lot of jokes about French. What do you call two buddies in a boat? A friendship. Quotes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And good friends drive you to the airport, they help you move, and then really good friends help you get rid of dead bodies. Anecdotes, personal stories related to your own friendship stuff. Could be a story from a movie. I love the movie Stand By Me about little boy, teenage young boys' friendships. And then there's also, I could do some other attention getters related to my topic as well too, right? So, but it's fine. You only got 5 minutes to prepare, so I think a quick stat could be a good, it's another one. I didn't think that. Okay. Then I'm going to transition. So I'm going to use some good transitional language. We're done with the introduction. Let's move on to the main body. My first main point, and I gesture, and that is why friendship is important. And I have details, examples, quotes, stories, and transition to the second main point, which is I'm going to talk about the types of friends, right? And here I will give some details, examples, quotes, and stories related to all the different types of friends: frenemies, best friends, friends of other friends, friends of the opposite sex, older friends, younger friends, party friends. Transition to the third main point, how to make friends, right? I provide details, examples, quotes, and stories. And I write all these as many subpoints out as I can. A good outline has more ideas than you actually even need, right? Because you go through your speech and you realize you've talked about everything that you really need to talk about, right? So because if you leave these blank and you spontaneously try to think of them, some of us can maybe come up with 2 or 3 ideas. And then after that, we usually are draw blank. So you just move on to the next things, right? But if you pre-write them out, you'll have plenty about things to talk about under each of your main points. Then you transition. I'm done with the main body, my third main point. Let's wrap it all up, go to the conclusion. My name is Peter Lee. I did my speech about friendship. I persuaded you to make friends. Here are my 3 main points again. Number 1, why friendship is important. Number 2, the different types of friends. And number 3, how to make friends and keep friendships going. Right. And then I close strong with I turn to my attention getter. I come back to my original question or joke or quote or personal story or another story, right? Anecdotes are personal stories. A story could be from a book or a movie, right? Like Stand By Me. And then, or a statistic to wrap it all up. And close strong. Remember, my last words matter. People remember most what you say last. So make sure your last words are good ones. And if I don't come back to my attention getter, I could also have a different quote to finish up my story, or my speech, or a story, or use some humor, or make an appeal. That's where you ask the audience to do something. For example, I asked the audience to go out and make a friend today, right? And connect it to your topic. So don't say thank you for listening, right? As the last words. Think about your topic, how to make friends, why you should make friends. Make sure you close on that, right? You always want to, when you're doing sales, always close on what you're trying to get the sale, right? Don't be saying thank you for listening to my sales pitch to wrap it up. Does everybody see how that's not going to work as well? So you can also go to the other sample topics. There are actually 66 of them here. I've got one here that for number 44, I like this one, music. So I got 5 minutes. I'm gonna make my outline. And I'll do an informative speech about music, or I can persuade people to listen or play music, right? Or mix music on SoundCloud or DJ program of some sort. I don't do that, but again, 3 main points. Think about an attention getter related to my music speech topic, a question, joke, quote, anecdote, story, statistic, right? And then I definitely need to fill out my 3 main points, the details. And then I always figure out how am I going to close strong in my transitions. These are the things that are hard to do spontaneously. Transitions, lots of deep subpoints. You can use 1 or 2 if you're kind of just going from your memory, but you tend to get linear, and then your speech isn't as well organized. And then how to close strong, right? This is hard. It's hard to think of what to say that matters right at that moment. Some of us aren't good at that. So I always prepare it, right? What I'm going to say to wrap up my speech, because those words matter. Does that make sense? So those are the things and then I use up my 5 minutes. I might even start practicing my speech, right? And that's how we do that. So